All right, so let's move on to the final one. We're going to talk about this one right here. New Orleans Saints special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi expects improvement in the kicking game. New NFL kickoff rule will require some adjustments every team. And this is written by senior writer John Deshazier of NewOrleansSaints.com. This is a good article because we often talk about Darren Rizzi, the special teams coordinator for New Orleans Saints, and how last year's special teams really didn't look that good to us. It really didn't look that good to us last year. So what the hell is Darren Rizzi going to do to improve this, man? And I don't know what it is, but am I the only one? Is it like a weird reality where I'm the only one, and me and several other people, only ones that see that the Saints suck in the kick return and punt return aspect of the special teams play? Am I the only one that see that? How garbage they are? That they can't block for kick returners or punt returners, that they punt returners and kick returner consistently get caught and tackled by multiple people. Not two, not three, not four people. Guy shakes one guy off, then shakes another guy off and gets tackled by two. Where's the blocking? Am I the only one and several other people the only one that notice how terrible that is? So, I mean, Darren Rizzi needs to be put on spot or asked about what are you doing to improve upon the kick return and punt return blocking. It stinks. And it's been happening for at least the last 2 years. So let's see what JD gets him to say in here. New Orleans Saints special team units are sprinkled with standouts from two-time All-Pro safety JT Gray. He's a punt team gunner and few peers. Taysom Hill, the tight end, who excels as a punt rusher. The linebacker, Zach Bond, who brings a level of force on tackles that most cannot conjure. To kicker Will Lutz and Blake Gillikin, the punter. But Lutz, 23 of 31 on field goal attempts, the lowest percentage of his career after missing the 21 campaign while recovering from core muscle injury. Gillikin, almost 41 and a half yard net average with 7 touchbacks, weren't quite as consistent as the Saints were accustomed to seeing in 22. Each appeared poised to bounce back this year. Also, the Saints in the NFL will learn how the new kickoff rule affects that phase of the game. Special teams coordinator Darren Rizzi went among the special team coaches in the league who vehemently were against the rule, which will allow the return team to have the ball placed at the 25-yard line on kickoffs if a fair catch is made inside the 25-yard line. Right? Rizzi spoke to senior writer Deshazier about these topics, and this is what JD asked him. Last year's special teams, how do you feel they performed? Rizzi said, a little bit inconsistent. I thought there were games where we took advantage of it. We played a lot of people last year. When you look at the 17 games, we had a lot of different guys playing on the bottom of the roster. So I think that certain plays into the consistency part of it when you can keep your core unit together for the whole year, the health of our team and the durability, all that is going to be important every year. I thought there were some things we did really well. I think if you ask Will Lutz and Blake Gillikin, they would tell you they want to be better than they were a year ago. But I think there were some things that if you look back and you look at our stats, there were some areas that we were really excited about. And that's what this time of the year is all about. All the areas we're trying to improve upon. Will Lutz and Blake Gillikin, when Blake Gillikin that was awful by Will Lutz. Awful year. Very awful year for Will Lutz. Blake Gillikin, not as good as the year previously, but we understand what that's about. We understand Blake Gillikin is going to get better. He's going to continue to get better. That's just, what it is. But, there was some positives, but when we talk about like other areas of the game, like we talk about the punt return, kick return aspect of the game, that needs to be addressed for real, man. So yeah, this is the year when you start looking at that stuff and seeing if you can improve upon it. So let's see what they can do. You appear to have a real kicker competition. This is a part of what Will knows as much as anyone. He deserves to have a competition until he shows he's back to where he was. Rizzi says, I think Blake Grupe is a really good player. Will is a really good player. Will and I sat down the day after the season and talked about everything. He knew coming in, he was going to have competition, whether it was a veteran or a rookie, whatever it was going to be in here to compete with. Deshazier asked him, what are your thoughts on the new kickoff rule? Special teams coordinator Rizzi says, I think there's a special teams coach. I think there's a special teams coach in the league. In fact, I know there's not a special teams coach in the league right now that likes that rule. I was a part of the special teams committee that kind of did a deep dive into the play going back to 2018 when we changed all the kickoff rules. I was a part of the committee as well. But then when we studied the kickoff, all the things that we changed, there was a tangible proof on film that were causing injuries. For example, the back end wedge. It was clear that it was causing injuries. The running start of the kickoff team, it was clear that that was causing injuries. Some of the rules that we took out and implemented new rules, the setup zone, for example, where eight guys up, the running, no running start by the kickoff team, and there were all tangible proof. What happened is the last 2 years, there was a slight uptick in concussions on the kickoff play. There were 19 this past year. The year before, I think there were 14. So the NFL asked us to do this deep dive. So what this committee does in offseason, we study the injuries. So we look at everything. We actually, he says, we look at actually every special team injury, not just head injuries. We look at all injuries. And so we did a deep dive, but specifically on concussions on kickoff. You watch the 19 plays and you go through them, and they were looking for tangible proof, the tangible evidence this rule change is going to help this concussion problem. And unanimously, the special teams coaches involved, any of the coaches that were involved, there's just no evidence on there that this rule is going to help with this issue. What the rule does is the rule helps the returner naturally, because he has the ability to protect himself by fair catching the ball. So the general fan, naturally, you would think that the returner is a guy who's getting the concussion, and he's not. There was only one concussion last year sustained by a returner, and that wasn't even on a collision. So our thought process and our down a little bit recommendation to the NFL is we didn't feel like, because the guys that were getting concussed are the tacklers, the blockers, and the coverage players. And on the fair catch, what most people don't understand is that you have to play the entire play. So it's not going to take the blocking and covering out of it, because the play is not dead until the catch is complete. So if a returner drops the fair catch, the ball is still a live ball and either team can recover it. So it doesn't take the blocking and coverage aspect out of it. You guys see the iron cross kickoff return extends each arm out to the side parallel to the ground all the time. And this is not the rule book. This is more of a special teams coaches gentleman's agreement. This is not in the rule book, but if you see it all the time and it is kind of like, hey, we're not going to return it, and now you can avoid the blocks, you don't have to have the collisions. In this circumstance, you're not going to get that. We put a lot of time and effort into it. The NFL is using the college data, just not an apples to apples comparison. They're saying we think the return rate is going to go down because in college the return rate is X. That would be like saying the field goal percentage last year in college was 73%, which is what it was. So next year in NFL, the percentage will be 73%. That's just not a fair comparison. So I feel like the NFL felt like they had to at least look at the rule for a year. There wasn't really many players or coaches, if any, that were in favor of doing it. We have some different ideas that we throw around. I think the most important thing to take out of this whole thing is that we as coaches, the most important thing is the health and safety of the players. And I think there was a false narrative being thrown around that the coaches didn't want it because it was going to see less returns. That's not the reason we didn't want it. There's the last thing any new coach wants to have is to lose a player to injury. All right, fair to that. We made a lot of adjustments to make the play safer. The number one reason that these concussions are happening is because we have tacklers and blockers coming down and leading with their head. And so we've got to do a better job as coaches teaching that. We've got to do a better job officiating it and making sure we're calling it when the player is leading with his head. And I think that's how we can maybe diminish some of these concussions. He says, here's what's going to happen. It's going to turn into ugly football. You know, after a penalty, you could kick off from the 50. So now we're kicking off from the 50. If I kick the ball in the air and they fair catch it, they get it at the 25. So you basically have rewarded the team that got penalized. So here's what's going to happen. Every kickoff from the 50, if you don't want a touchback, is going to be a squib kick. The only thing is that's a big deal. The college rule is if you drop the fair catch, you don't get to advance it. So this is some of the interview right here from Darren Rizzi. You can see him talking about the kicking rule. which is interesting. We'll see how it applies when the time comes. But still, in all, we get to the bottom of it. The special teams, regardless of whatever the rules are, we're gonna have to figure a way around this stuff to get success. And my thought process to Darren Rizzi is the Saints special teams damn sure needs to improve. Like our offense needs to improve. We spent a lot of money on offense to make sure they get back to where they were. The defense, a lot of resources have been given to the defense. They were sturdy last year. They was the unit that led the team. The offense should be the unit that leads the team. The defense following them up. The special teams need to get up off their ass and make some stuff happen this year too. The three of those units together operating means a successful year for your New Orleans Saints. That's how this stuff happens. So anyway, with that being said, we're going to get ready to get on that. Listen, I appreciate you guys for chiming in on this episode of the show. Please feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and feel free to share the show on your social media feed, the Sports Coma. We up in this thing. Shout out to the fam. Appreciate y'all. And shout out to the new family members tuned in that's on the team. Brother Randolph from the Keeping It Real Who Dat podcast, my boy Teal and the brothers at NOLA Bros. Shout out to you, Hoodie Jube. The rest of the family members, man, they got Thursday in gear, man. A lot of great content rolling at you, man. The Who Dat Nation United. That's what this is in here, man. The Who Dat Nation United, man. We one team, one voice, man. That's how we doing that thing rolling forward. So shout out to those brothers out there. So, and shout out to you as well. So please feel free to give them some support by subscription. Feel free to further support the platform as we continue to move forward and do great things. Feel free to please go to whothatdaily.com, man, and start supporting the great writers that we have over there that's writing really great articles. They're turning out articles every day, at least 3 to 4 articles a day. At least 3 or 4 articles a day they're turning out. We ain't playing no games, man. We about making things happen. So with that being said, man, be a part of the movement. By donation, donate, man. You see some of these links that's popping up in the chat. The links is popping up in the description section. Join the movement and help. You see something great moving forward, man. Be a part of it. Be a part of the movement. With that being said, I'm going to get out on that. I appreciate y'all.